just to stop and listen. I'm open to divine guidance. God is not my keeper. God is my partner. God is my partner. And when I partner with the divine presence, then we can walk hand in hand to whatever needs to occur in my life. There's a wonderful little Sufi story about a blackbird who found a large piece of food, and he picked it up and he flew up into the sky, and he's flying around with this food, and of course all the other blackbirds see this, and they all swoop down on him, and they start picking on the food like crazy, and he's flapping around, and you've probably seen this before when birds do their thing. They're picking on this food and picking on this food, and he's frantically trying to hold on to this food, and finally they get it away from him, and they fly off, and he's left alone. And so he flies up, and he soars down, and he flies up, and he swoops around, and then he thinks, well, he says, I've lost the food, but I've regained the peaceful sky. You know? I've lost the moment, but I've regained my presence. I've regained my sense of peace. I've regained who it is that I am in that moment. So when we give up attachments to worldly ways and say that's what's going to control our life, sometimes we feel like we've lost something. Sometimes it feels like when we're making that shift, it's like, you know, we have this kind of pattern, this habit. It feels like there's something missing, but then when we finally get there and we say, oh, I can let that go. I don't have to do what maybe I've done in the past. Or I don't have to listen to that particular voice that has been a challenge for me in my life. I can really do what Spirit is really calling me to do. I have a friend, you know, sometimes, you know, in our letting go of our attachment to the world, you know, we might have a friend that comes up to us and says, well, you know, I made this sale, I convinced these people to do something, they didn't want to do it, but I convinced them to do it, and I made a lot of money doing it. And so what happens is all of a sudden we go, oh, gee, that's the way of the world. You know, is we need to go out and we need to grab what is ours out of the flow of money, and we get caught up in that whole dynamic. And that sometimes is hard to let go of. And when we let go of that, and we allow Spirit to move, it's incredible how prosperity flows to us. When Karen and I went to Unity of Seattle, it was probably a very powerful lesson about listening. And it was in January of 1990 that the church came open and we sent in our resume. And the Seattle church was a mess. I mean, it had gone through this incredible turmoil, and the attendance had gone from 1,000 down to 100, and it was in this conflict, and they were just coming out of this conflict. So we sent our resume in, and you know, we'd only been in ministry for 5 years, and so we were having lunch with this minister friend, and we told him where we sent our resume. And he says, "Are you crazy? You know, are you absolutely nuts?" You know, and he went on and on and on about, you know, how stupid we were and how, you know, you don't want to get yourself in that mess and da-da-da-da, so on and so forth, you know. And we were like, you know, okay. And so we stepped back and we thought about it for a moment. And then we were thinking, well, maybe there's some things we have left to do here. And so we decided, well, we'll pull our resume. And so we talked about that, and we said, okay, we'll pull our resume, and we won't put it back in there unless somebody calls us out of the blue. And then we'll send it back. That was sort of our agreement between each other and our commitment, you know, from Spirit. That's what Spirit guided us to do. And so we pulled back, and 3 months later, the church had gone through a whole hiring process. They interviewed 3 candidates, they had them in, and they didn't like any of them. And so in May, I get a phone call. And it says, "This is Bob Cleland, Seattle Church, da-da-da-da. We talked about it. We'd like you guys to resubmit your resume." I was like, whoa. I mean, that's never happens, you know. So, I mean, we sort of had given up on it. And all of a sudden, it was real clear what Spirit wanted us to do. You know, it was absolutely clear. It was like an outer affirmation of what we're supposed to do. And so we sent our resume back in. We went out in August and interviewed. We had all these conditions because she was pregnant, and Caroline was supposed to be born in October. And we had a midwife, So we couldn't come there until December. So we said, well, we'd like to come here, but we can't do it until December. And they said, okay. And so it's like everything clicked into place and fell into place, and we came. And I want to tell you, I'd like to tell you that, we showed up and everything was like, life was good. It was the hardest year I have spent, it was very difficult. And just because Spirit guides us to do something doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Do you hear that? Just because you're guided to do something, it doesn't mean that the doors are going to fly open and the angels are going to sing and everything's going to flow in perfect order. That is not necessarily an affirmation of whether you're supposed to do something or not. You're called to do something that you're capable of doing in the context of a situation that needs you. And if it needs you, it's because there's something that needs to be healed. There's something that needs to happen. And so it's probably not going to be easy, because God would not equip you with the tools and skills and talents and energy that you have and then just send you into La La Land. What's the point of that? You're going to be sent into a situation where you can make a difference. And that's not going to be easy. It's going to challenge you. It's going to push you a little bit. It's going to make you reach down inside yourself and grow into what it is that you're supposed to be. A friend of mine who's an MD, he's one of my best friends, and we were talking the other day, and he's a medical director of a large set of clinics in the Seattle area. And pretty important position, very demanding, and he does a lot of administrative work, and he hires the docs, and he has to deal with all the personnel issues and stuff. And he was talking with me, he was just kind of talking out loud, and he was kind of talking through some stuff that he was dealing with, and he'd hired a woman doctor from back east to come out, and they were in that kind of that 90-day window, where you can let somebody go without cause and all that stuff. And she was doing fine as a clinician, but she had the staff in turmoil. And she was just very hard on the staff, very, very difficult, very acerbic would be the word, not pleasant to be around. And so there was this toxic environment in the staff. And he had sat down and he talked with her, and he said, here's what's going on. He was trying to be clear as he could be, and she got very defensive and blamed the staff for all the problems and all this stuff, and he was really struggling about what it is that he needed to do and how he needed to show up and to deal with this. And the truth is, and we talked about it, and I told him, I said, Ron, I said, you have all the wisdom that you need to know what it is to do.